Hello and welcome to my mental health podcast. I kind of decided that I just want to do a whole rundown on my mental health story. I'm going to go from most recent and work my way backwards. I just kind of want you guys to know my story and where I'm coming from and where a lot of my information, I suppose, is coming from. So I'm just going to go ahead and get started. So back in August of last year, August 2024, August 24th, 2024, almost 6 months ago, me and my now fiance were in a horrific side-by-side ATV accident. We took an impromptu trip down to Southern Oregon to visit my cousin. We were originally going to go fishing with my uncle, but he wasn't quite up for it, which is completely understandable. So my cousin Jamie, she drove us up to her boyfriend Kurt's house. And Kurt has a whole bunch of toys and lives on a side of a mountain, so we decided to take his side-by-side ATVs out for the day. We had the best day, honestly. It was beautiful. We were out for multiple hours, made it up to the top of the mountain. We were just on our way down, going nice and slow around this curve because we're coming up on another curve. And all of a sudden, the ATV was upside down. Honestly, the first thing that I remember is just laughing because I thought it was fun. I thought that Jake had, lost control of the vehicle and that we had just rolled off the road and that everything was fine and that it was just a small little accident. So I was laughing. I was upside down and I was laughing. That's what I remember. Until I look over to share the joy with Jake in the driver's seat, and Jake's not laughing. He's not even conscious. He's unconscious and he has blood pooling up his face because we're upside down. His neck was cut, and so there was just blood running all down his face from it. So I stopped laughing immediately. I remember slipping out from my seatbelt because I was upside down and had to fall down to the ground, and I went over and just started pulling on Jake, and I remember just trying to work on getting him out of the vehicle. I didn't remember that a seatbelt was a thing after I had gotten out of mine because I remember just pulling on him and there was so much resistance and I was just screaming for Kurt and Jamie to come help me. And so finally they did, and Kurt clicked the seatbelt buckle and Jake just came toppling out. And so at that point, Kurt disappeared again and I didn't know where he had gone. Jamie took off her sweatshirt and wrapped it around Jake's neck, and then me and Jamie started trying to pull him up the small hill that we had rolled down. I remember the whole time just screaming bloody murder for Kurt to come back and help us, but apparently what he was doing is he hooked up a rope and connected it to the ATV that had rolled, connected it to the ATV that was upright, and pulled the second ATV up to make sure that all 4 people could get off of the mountain. So while Kurt was pulling the ATVs upright and getting them in a drivable spot, me and Jamie were sitting there trying to pull Jacob up this hill while he was unconscious. And he broke his arm right on his humerus. And so it was a completely clean break, right in half. And it just felt like jello. Every time we rolled him, we had to get his arm out from behind him and pull it back to the front. And it felt like jello. Jake always asked me if it's like that scene in Harry Potter where something about no bones, and yeah, that's legitimately what it felt like. It was horrifying. So after Kurt got the ATVs upright, he helped me and Jamie get Jake the rest of the way up the hill, and we got him up to the door of the ATV, but the 3 of us couldn't lift him. the three of us could not lift him up into the ATV, and so Kurt had to sit there and he was yelling at Jake, like, stand up, man, like, I know this sucks and you got nothing left in you, but like, I need you to stand up. And Jake's bloodshot eyes just opened and he stood up and straightened his knees, and thank God, because it took all four of us to get him off of that mountain. And so Jake straightened his knees and we were able to load him into the ATV. And so Kurt drove Jake in one of the side-by-sides, flying down the mountain because he knew where he was at, just holding his hand the whole entire time. He kept, Jake kept like grabbing on and coming to, and then Kurt thought that he had lost him because he would go limp and he would pass back out. And then while Jake was coming to, he was kept trying to like exit the ATV vehicle. I remember coming up behind them at one point in the road with Jamie, and I lost it because I thought that we lost him and that he was gone, and that Kurt was like, well, it's too late, so we're just gonna wait for you guys and make sure that you get off the mountain safely. But it was because it was unsafe with Jake trying to open the door, you know, the trauma thing, like, I gotta get out of here, I gotta get up, I gotta go. He was coming in and out of it, and every time he came into it, he was just trying to leave the vehicle. And so I kid you not, he rode in that ATV with his neck cut open. His carotid artery was sliced. 40 minutes, 20 miles down the mountain before he was met with any EMTs. And there was no service, so the whole time I was in the other ATV behind with my cousin, and we didn't know where we were. She felt like she was lost, so at one point we just kind of stopped, and we were trying to get service, trying to call her dad, trying to call 911. I remember sending a text message out to my sister, and just hopes that like as soon as we hit service, it'll resend and that she'll get on the phone with 911. And that's exactly what happened. My sister was hanging out with her baby and her baby's grandma, and she was just like, take him, like, there's an emergency, like, I gotta go. And so she got on the phone and was able to let me know that like the EMTs had picked up Jake and that he was alive at that point, at least. And so finally me and Jamie get down to the bottom of the hill, and all of a sudden we see Kurt just running, no ATV, no nothing, he's just running, and there's this truck following him. And so Kurt tells me, like, go get in that truck with this strange man, and so I do. It's super sketchy. I found out later that Kurt like threw a couple $100 on the guy's seat and was like, yo, like, I need a ride. And we were bloody and messed up, and the guy was just like, okay. And so he didn't say a single word to me. I just got in his car and he took me over to the gas station of where he originally picked up Kurt. And by the time I got there, the ambulance was gone with Jake. He was already on his way to the hospital. And so I was there with the other EMTs, and a firefighter had to give me a ride into town, but I had to take off my sweatshirt and a bunch of my bloody clothes and put them in a bag because I was too messed up to get into the front of his vehicle. It's crazy. During all the shit, I was just like, you know, I'm sure there's no way you guys are gonna find a vape over on the ATV, but I could really use some nicotine. So by the grace of God, if you do find it, please let me know and hand it over before I head out. And lo and behold, they found it. I had my nicotine. I know it's not that important, but it was nice. It was needed. And so basically the firefighter told me, like, look, I can either give you his guns and his weapons that I took off of his person and you can stay here because they can't go to the hospital, or like I can give you a ride to the hospital. And so I didn't know what to do. All of our phones were all mixed up. I had Jamie's phone, Jamie had my phone, I had Jacob's phone. Like, I didn't know what to do. The place was surrounded by cops. I didn't know if they were gonna roll up and get a DUI. So I got in the firefighter vehicle and went to the hospital, to Grants Pass Hospital, where they had Jacob. And I sat in that emergency room looking like the worst thing that they'd probably ever seen. It's a small town hospital. People go there for the flu. They were not equipped for this level. They told me that Jake's carotid artery was not severed. Quite honestly, it took him about 3 hours to even see me and get me checked out while I was sitting in their waiting room all bloody because they forgot about me. But finally I get checked out. I'm able to go back and see Jacob. He's stable, but they are nowhere near capable of taking care of this type of trauma at this facility. So they decide that they are going to airlift him over to Springfield, Eugene, to the Riverbend Hospital. And so at about 11 p.m. at night, I saw him off into the helicopter, drove back with my cousin to her house where me and Jake were camping. I slept for maybe 3 hours in our tent and then woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning. Jamie set an alarm on her phone. It was so sweet. She came out and helped me pack out all of Jake's camping stuff back up into my car. And at 5 in the morning, I drove up to Eugene and saw Jake in the ICU. At this point, he spent the next 3 weeks unconscious in the ICU. He had a stroke. He was completely paralyzed on the right side of his body. The right side of his heart started to shut down as well, and so it failed and he had a heart attack, but they can't label it a heart attack because his arteries were clear. It was a cardiac event in his chart. But basically he had muscle weakness on the entire right side of his body, and that went to weakening the right side of his heart as well, and the left side was overcompensating. At one point he was shocked, I think it was 11 times within 1 hour. And the day before he was well enough to come off of the breathing tubes, he was not doing well at all, and he had a 20-second pause. Count 20 Mississippis. I'll do a pause right now. It's only halfway. 20. That's how long that his heart stopped. It was like a Grey's Anatomy episode where it was just like the entire ICU floor was just hovering outside his room, like ready to come in and resuscitate him. And then the next day he just started doing better. They came in like, if we had the staff, we would take the breathing tube out right now. And so the following day at about 2 o'clock in the morning, they extubated him and took the breathing tube out finally. He had to relearn how to walk, man. It has been the craziest experience for me to watch a 30-year-old have to go through a stroke and be paralyzed and relearn how to walk. It has been so much. I am so thankful that he is okay. Every single day, I am so grateful. He has to go through all these challenges now, and I'm so grateful that he's okay and that he has the chance to go through all of this and to recover. Man. And so he got to come home October 1st. He was transferred to the Vancouver inpatient rehab. And they expected him to, be there for a month, maybe 2, and he ended up getting sent home within 2 weeks. He did so phenomenal and made so much gains. He was just ready to come home and to see his dog. And so during that time, he wasn't able to go upstairs. And we lived on a second floor apartment that requires one flight of stairs. And so during that 2-week stay of this inpatient rehab, I had to work with my apartment complex and with his family and with a lot of different people to get a very short-term move figured out, where we were able to move in 2 days before Jake was released home, like that weekend. I think it took 1 week to get everything finalized, and then we had just 20 people come over and help and just move everything in 2 hours. It was phenomenal. I am so grateful to the whole Escada family. Thank you guys so much for everything, and to Jake and Jamie Collins, my cousins, my twin cousins. Thank you guys. I don't know if you'll ever see this, but I'm so grateful. Thank you for all of the help everybody has given, and for all of the prayers. And Jacob has such a wonderful community. It's been incredible feeling the presence of everybody in his life during this difficult time when he wasn't able to talk to anybody. So just thank you. Man. You know, I was going to talk about all my other trauma, but holy smokes, that ended up being a lot. How long am I at, man? All right. That's a solid grasp on my recent trauma, PTSD accident. So now moving backwards. So the reason me and Jake even started dating is because I moved to Vancouver to move in with my younger sister, who was pregnant and 22, and I ended up being Jacob's boss at Weimar. I'm just gonna be happy with that for a minute before I get into my previous trauma, because I am so happy and so grateful. Okay. So the reason that I moved to Vancouver with my pregnant sister is because I decided to end my previous relationship of almost 9 years. So in this previous relationship, me and my ex started dating sophomore year of high school. After high school, he moved out with me and my sister and another roommate. And then me and him moved to Arizona for a few years. And then me and him moved back to Oregon. During the majority of this time as adults, he didn't work, was unemployed, not going to college, not attempting to find a job, nothing. I was like, whatever, for a while, right? Well, 2022, man. December of 2022, my mom passed away from leukemia cancer. I lost my job shortly after that. And then I was just living off of my unemployment and my small bit of life insurance money that my mom had left me. And then I found out I was pregnant. Me and my younger sister found out we were pregnant 3 months after our mom passed away. And we were both pregnant at the same time. Now, during all this, during my mom dying, during me finding out I'm pregnant, all of that, my ex still, had no ambitions of getting a job. He was not applying for anything, just nothing. Didn't care. Not that he didn't care, just didn't care enough to get a job and to step up. So, when I go to my first ultrasound appointment, I found out that the baby I was carrying most likely had an ectopic heart. Now what that is it means that the heart was growing on the outside of the baby's body, not within the chest cavity like it should. So I spent the next few weeks in a major Google black hole, Google deep dive as you all know, it's not recommended. It's horrendous for your mental health. All the stories are negative, and I mean, it ended up that way, but I didn't need to stress myself out during the entire time. So, wait a few weeks. Supposed to go back to have a follow-up ultrasound and confirm once the anatomy is a little bit more grown. And so I go back at 10 weeks for a second ultrasound, and there was no longer a heartbeat. I had miscarried the baby. I honestly was in denial. I was feeling more morning sickness than I had previously. I still taking pregnancy tests. The line was super strong still. I was in such denial that I waited to I had to make a DNC appointment to rectify the situation and make sure that I passed all of the tissue and everything, but I was in denial. And once I got to the appointment to the hospital, I made them give me 2 or 3 more ultrasounds to make sure that there still wasn't a heartbeat, because I didn't believe it. And so I had my miscarriage in May of 2023, and then I started work in June, and because I had gotten a new job while I was pregnant, and I was actually supposed to start the day after my ultrasound appointment, where I found out that I miscarried, so I had to push it back by a month. And so I just started working 70 hours a week and was just working myself into the ground. I just didn't want to be home. I mean, it was rough. And so finally, my ex did get a job in August, and the night after his first day of work, I decided I was done. I wouldn't want my mom being treated this way. If my baby was a daughter, I wouldn't want her being treated this way. And so why am I allowing myself to be treated this way? It's not what I deserve, not what I want for my future kids either. So I had to make the decision to leave my relationship of almost a decade. Man. So let's go back to when I moved out for college again. I became the legal guardian of my 16-year-old sister at the time and brought her with me to college to finish out high school. I didn't feel comfortable leaving her in my childhood home alone with my dad. My older sister had went off to be homeless and to do drugs, unfortunately. My younger sister had told my dad that she was sad and attempted suicide, and his response was, "You have nothing to be sad about." And that younger sister never saw herself being past 18 years old, ever. And so knowing all this, I was terrified that she wouldn't make it to 18 years old. And so I took her with me my freshman year of college, and I was her legal guardian. We had a hard time. I was a not mentally complete 18-year-old taking care of a 16-year-old with her own mental issues and eating disorders, and my own eating disorders and financial problems. But we both talk about it, no matter what issues we had, it was absolutely the right move to take her out of my father's home. Yeah, my father, he's been unemployed for as long as I can remember. We grew up having the government pay for our housing, being on food stamps, all the things. He didn't have to try for a single thing in his life. Well, he did at one point when I was younger. I remember it. when he did try, you know, he did well. He did good for himself. He had a home, he had a family, he had a wife, he had a business. Economy went to crap, so did his business and his life. And then he never wanted to try again and pick up the pieces. Thought it would be easier to just sit home drunk and play video games and let other people pay for your lifestyle with their tax dollars. And so my older sister, prior to leaving the house and being homeless and deciding to do drugs, she was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. She has the manic depressive type. And man, I remember growing up with her manic episodes when we were teenagers. She would get 3 or 4 jobs, man. She was working all the time. We called it her manic money because she was just working. But those transition months where we knew that the depressive episodes were coming up, that was scary. Like, I remember me and my younger sister had to take turns waking up at 2 o'clock in the morning because Kelly, my older sister, she had a newspaper route as one of her jobs. And so she had to be out from like 2:30 till 6 in the morning. And so me and my sister, like, yeah, we had school, and sports, but, you know, it was our responsibility. We had to wake up early and take turns to go sit in the car with her at just after midnight and do her paper route with her just to make sure she's safe and taken care of. And man, I don't know, I'm not driving off a cliff. It's just, man. All right. You know, I'm sure I'm 1,000% sure there's more. And there's a lot of small stories that I could tell. But I just kind of wanted to open up this podcast with a baseline understanding of my experience and where I'm coming from, and kind of what mental health issues I relate to and might be talking about in the future. I just kind of wanted you guys to be able to have this reference video so you kind of know who I am while I talk to you about stuff in the future. Yeah, it's just hard because sometimes I'm like, oh, I don't know if they even know about this, which you probably don't because I haven't shared it. So this is my starter baseline. Here's my trauma story. Not gonna say I hope you liked it, but I mean, it is what it is. Here comes Mr. Jake. He's done with his little teeth cleaning. Bye. Thank you.